Hi and welcome to the recap of round 9 of the Candidates Tournament 2022. Exciting. I say exciting way too often. It starts to really annoy me. But it was really an exciting day. An important day as well for the participants, as Jan Nepomniachtchi was facing Fabiano Caruana, the two leaders of the event, with Jan being already a point ahead in this round after Fabi lost a painful game yesterday to Nakamura. And it was crucial for Jan, who was playing with the black pieces against Fabi, to not lose this game. And Fabi really gave it his all, prepared something special, and we had a marvelous fight. I'm going to show you that. And besides that, a few other things have happened. A surprising result on the board, Radjabov against Nakamura. I've given something away there already. And Firouzja, Rapport, Ding, Duda. Perhaps it was time for the pre-tournament favorites, Firouzja and Ding, to strike. And I believe maybe they did. We'll find out in the recap. Don't leave anywhere and let's continue watching. In the game Fabi against Jan, Fabi started with 1e4, a move that he often employs in important games and he's always well prepared. And it was no surprise that Jan played the reliable Petrov defense, something that he prepared for the World Championship match and also employed in the candidates already. On a couple of occasions, after knight 3 and f6, Fabi went for the main line. Here move 6. Jan also experimented with the move knight c6, even in this event against Hikaru Nakamura. But for this game, went for bishop d6, the move that he played just 2 rounds ago against Richard Rapport, and also the move that he chose in his World Championship match. So something that he really relies on. Fabi obviously came well prepared, and after castle c4, c6, rook e1, bishop f5, queen b3, queen e7, we got a tabia where white has lots of different options. Here Magnus in the match tried the main variation with knight to c3. There are many other different moves. Fabi came up with yet one more, knight h4, a move that has almost never been played except by a player, his last name Rosman. Unfortunately or fortunately, it was not Levi Rosman that played this move, otherwise Nepo would have definitely been well prepared. But it was a different Rosman, and so Jan did notice that game and was already on his own here. I believe that he must have had this in his prep, but probably didn't consider it the most critical, and then if you don't consider it very critical, you don't remember it just as well. So he started thinking already here, and after some minutes of thought, he essayed the natural move bishop e6. Now, taking on e4 is never very tempting with the lag in development, and black having active play there. I imagine a move like b5 can also happen after you take here twice. So the knight's kind of not capturable. Same after queen c2, knight a6. Again, white's not going to capture here with the development so behind, but the idea is not to do that, to play a3, prevent knight b4. And now this knight on a6, it will always be a little bit of a bad piece unless it reroutes itself via c7 or sometimes even back via b8. In any case, Jan played f5. He does need to eventually support the knight, not so much against the threat of a capture, but more against the threat of knight c3, which would be an issue, because if you take, you could take on h7. So f5 happened, and now we go cd, cd. We get this interesting position. White has potential access to this hole on e5 because of the pawn structure. You see the e5 square is weak, while the e4 square can be dealt with thanks to the move f3. The knight on h4 is quite misplaced, so that's what black is banking on. Now Jan played the move rook a8, a natural move. Also possible is to reroute knight right away. It made sense to do knight a6 when the pawn was on c6, but once the pawn has already left, you can reroute back to c6. So that was certainly a possibility. Jan played rook a8 first, natural, and after f3, it was an important moment for him to decide what to do. I don't know if he was still in book. Well, he was certainly not in book during the game because he was already spending half an hour, which is a lot of time for him. But sometimes you try to recollect your analysis. So I thought maybe he was aware of all this because he played a very strong move bishop e7, the move suggested by the computer, and after g3 he had to find one more brilliant sequence, that's bishop f6, sacrificing the piece, and after the line that goes with fe, bishop takes a6, bishop takes d4, bishop e3, takes, and takes. We have a position where white is up a full piece and it looks like he should be able to consolidate, but it's not so easy. And after rook d1, potential line goes queen f7, rook e1, bishop g4, rook d4, queen f6, and now things are starting to get a little overloaded. If rook d5, then e3, and if queen d2, then e3, queen e3, rook e8. And again, things are very tricky for white here. If he takes on d5, there's a brilliant sacrifice with a draw, while if he takes on e8, then again black has a perpetual check opportunity here. but this is all really hard to see, and I was wondering if maybe Jan knows it and he could do it, but actually he didn't know or didn't recall any of this stuff, and he just retreated the knight. But now there are some issues with these bishops here piled up against the rook, and Fabi utilized it with queen a4. Also queen e2 was, by the way, quite unpleasant with the idea knight c7, knight d5, and he's going to win a pawn here on this cheapo. If knight takes, I take the e6 bishop. If bishop takes, I take here. But Fabi played queen a4, which was also very nice, distracting the queen and putting pressure on the bishops. And after bishop f6 takes, we got an interesting position where the pawn structure is symmetrical, but white's got much more active pieces, and knight on a6 is quite ugly. Bishop is coming to f4, and all these pieces are a little shaky. Knight e7 is also incoming. So Nepo tried to consolidate rook e8, bishop f4, knight c5, knight e7, and king f7. I should mention knight c5 to be very accurate of a move. If you take here, we take here, everything works out for black. But you give a check, king f7, and here Fabi made a important mistake, move he'll regret likely for the rest of the tournament. Bishop takes f5, natural capture, but after takes, captures, knight to d3, a very strong move. Somehow, being a pawn down, black is able to find enough counterplay, b2 pawn is falling, and black can eliminate the very powerful bishop on f4 if necessary. And here, Jan basically equalized the game. The move that Fabi had to find was the move bishop to f1, and now after knight to c8, knight was hanging. White can keep the advantage with a beautiful sequence check, bishop e6, and now an exchange side, rook takes e6, knight e6, and knight h f5. Somehow there is threats of knight d4 and knight c8, and it might seem as though white is completely winning. Black can resist with king f6. Now white goes knight d5, king g6, and one of the possibilities is to take and play this position where white's got two bishops and pawn for rook and a knight, but the king is really weak, and it's very dangerous for black, this position. I wouldn't say that white is winning yet, it's really a long way to go, but certainly a chance missed by Fabiano. Also, there were other options here. Instead of knight takes d4, some kind of knight d6 is also an option, apparently. And here too, knight h5 also would be a better version of the game somehow, as white gets to keep the bishop pair after bishop b2, rook b1. Bishop f5 is best, and now white's got the bishop pair, so still some pressure for white here as well. But after bishop f5, as I mentioned, Jan escaped, and the rest of the game he was in control. I was even thinking perhaps he could play for a win a little bit with b5 before, but after rook d8, bishop b6, Fabi blocked the pawn, and it was just a draw. In any case, a great result for Jan. Jan was quite happy with the draw. An important win for well, not a win, a draw, but in this case, definitely an important strategic win for him, because now he's 1 point ahead of Fabi, and Fabi doesn't have a chance to narrow that gap, and it's now in hands of Jan. He might have that tournament in his bag, but he still needs to finish well, and there are many rounds left, still 5 rounds to go, so early to count the eggs, as they say. But let's see what happened in the other games. Hikaru Nakamura, another player who was fighting for the top 3 spots in the third position, just behind Fabiano after beating him yesterday, was perhaps eager to test out Timur Radjabov even with the black pieces, but Timur came very well prepared. He played this anti-Berlin. Now both players have played anti-Berlin against each other. Hikaru also a Berlin player, and it seems in this tournament there are so many different anti-Berlins. Black is struggling sometimes to equalize the opening, and even here after the opening phase, Hikaru was quite unconfident here, spent a lot of time on this knight a7, knight c6 maneuver, and after knight b3, bishop a7, bishop b5, found himself in direct problems, because I want to take the pawn here on a5. It's possible to drop the bishop back to b6, but then perhaps you have to reckon with and deal with the knight on c4. So not an easy position already for Hikaru, and after bishop a7, bishop b5, he decided to sacrifice the pawn. The sack was not really correct, and here in this position, it seems like, particularly here, it seems like black has some play on the f file, perhaps as the king is a little bit weakened, but it's not easy. f5 is always met by queen c4, and knight f4 is met by capture, so Hikaru spent a lot of time trying to find an idea, and wasn't able to. After king h8, king h1, again f5 is met by queen c4, when it's very uncomfortable for black. He wants to play f5 and at the same time be able to jump with the queen to h3, but it's not how pieces move. Even Hikaru's juicers don't jump over themselves, and so here he couldn't find counterplay. Queen h3 first, then you allow knight c6, That's also not a good thing. So he just unable to find the move. He went for h6. After g1, f5 already, Timur managed to regroup, and here just got rid of all the black's counterplay. Knight can never come to f4 now with the pawn on e3, and this knight will eventually move itself, and then the pawn will round down the board. Hikaru tried an endgame and actually had his chance here, but he took on b4 way too quickly and then started thinking here, realizing too late that there is no counterplay after Timur protected the knight. The a pawn just went to a7 and it was all over. Instead here, with c pawn still on the board, Hikaru had a chance with knight to f6 and knight d5 or knight d4, hitting that c3 pawn that is still on the board. That is the only chance. And here black is actually fighting, still within the within some I wouldn't say drawing margin, but definitely a possibility to hold the game. But after cb, this was no longer possible because the c3 pawn is already gone, and black cannot undermine this monstrous construction with knight on c6, pawn on b5, and the a pawn marching down. It's just what happened. And Timur might be off shape, might be unconfident in this tournament, but he is still going to push his pawns forward. And he is a very classy player, very good player. He knows when he sees a winning position, and there was no saving for Hikaru. Good conversion there by Timur. Very accurate play, and finally trading off the knights and getting that a pawn through after takes 6. Rook b8 is gonna be inevitable here. Just check, and rook b8 wins a rook in the game. An important win, in fact, for Fabi and Jan, who see Hikaru going down the standings, and Timur still on a minus score, will be really happy with this win and perhaps can start dreaming about winning all the remaining games, though it's a really long shot. The same about Alireza, who, just like Timur, did some good things today, despite having a bad tournament. In the anti-Berlin, once again, went for castle this time, not c3 of Timur, allowing knight d4. But now after takes, he came with this old idea of knight a3. I don't think he expected the Berlin defense from Richard Rapport, who usually plays a Sicilian. And here Richard was asked the question, how well does he know his Berlin defense? And it seems that Richard was not entirely onto the details here. After bishop b3, which is a clever idea, all old theory. Bishop steps out of potential b5 push. Richard here came up with a very creative queen e7. He didn't want a castle short because of bishop g5, when pin would be annoying, and if you weaken the king side, then the king is there, so you don't want to do that perhaps. But queen e7 was not the right way to remain flexible. The right way is to play h6 or a5, but after queen e7, it was in fact a lost tempo in a position like that. Here, if queen was on d8, pawn was on a5, you'd be able to push a4, but now with some time lost, white starts with f4 and gets good play. Alireza went for the sack. He could also just play knight e3 with advantage, but he went for the school pawn sack. I really like it. There are many ways here, like bishop d2, bishop c3 is liked by the computer. This move I liked myself. The engine says black is fine here, but definitely white is on the offensive. Bishop e6 is an important move, stabilizing, not castling into the attack yet. And here Alireza stopped the castle, and Richard never was able to castle any longer in this game. Although here still he was alright. The critical moment came here now. Richard decided to start some concrete action, but it was important to keep the pieces as they are, preventing rook f5. Possible to go for g5, perhaps immediately or after h6, dislodging the queen and then going for knight g4, really trying to keep the control of the e5 square, getting the knight there. There's even a variation like that, where you play queen to g7 and then knight comes on e5 in an important blockading square there for the knight. And that is important because, as we'll see in the game, once white gets this e5 push here, very important is queen g3. You're not afraid of giving up material because you open the e-file. And if knight d7, now bishop d6, still the rook is taboo. And now the rook can come back, and we've regained the control of the e5 square. That's very important. The bishop is now opened. Knight's dominated on d7, very passive piece here. Pawn and the bishop control all the important squares for the knight. And with the bishop joining the party, white is crushing. Also, there are some ideas of queen g5, queen a7. And the rest was just conversion by Alireza, very smooth. He just picked up everything as Richard tried to artificially castle, but it was way too late, way too slow. White has already restored material balance and going to collect a pawn, and just everything falls apart. And after 95, Richard also just loses a piece for no compensation, and so he resigned. A beautiful win for Alireza, a little too late perhaps to join the fight for top spots, but still an important game for his confidence. It's not his last candidates tournament, and it's good for him to get some wins. You can find a deeper look into the game of the day on the Chessable course. If you go pro on Chessable, it's free, and so if you pay first, it's that free, obviously, very logical. And you also have puzzles, and you'll be a proud pro member on Chessable. So do check out my Chessable course on the candidates, and see you there. And the final game, we should look at the game of Ding Liren. Ding was also sleeping for a long time in this tournament. Started with a loss, then tried very hard in many games. Came close multiple times, but never quite got across that finish line. Today was eager to finally do that. And once again, 1c4. It seems that Ding prepared 1c4 for this tournament. He played it in all of his games. It looks like he's got a lot of ideas there. And indeed, here in this theoretical line that Duda played, Ding came with some very small, but a very little wrinkle, rook d4, small novelty, intending to just, as you will see, trade a bunch of pieces, get that Catalan endgame, and win that Catalan endgame. Rook to d1, queen to f4, trade that, then somewhere knight to e5, trade this bishop too. And this is typical Catalan position because of this weak c6 square and the domination of d file. A weak pawns here. White got that small edge. Remember, similar to the game between Ding and Fabi, where also Ding had that small little edge. Ding is going for these positions, a very technical player, trusting his endgame technique. And while Fabiano was able to defend that game against Ding, Duda did not. And Ding kept the pressure and managed to win. There were some moments where Duda was fine. He came up with this creative defense, rook to d2, allowing knight e5, now g6. There's lots of counterplay here. These pawns are all a bit weak. And Duda should have been doing fine around here. Perhaps somewhere here he had options. He had this knight h5 move. Rook b4 was also okay. The critical moment, yeah, here was possible. Maybe knight h5, maybe rook b3 was also alright. But the a pawn is there. It's not going too far yet, but it can start rolling down the board. The critical moment really was here. That was the final moment where Black could have improved. He just took here, and after rook c7, this was move 40 by the way, time scramble. Rook c7 now, f7 pawn falls, and it's all over for Black. Here it was possible to go bishop h5 with the idea after rook c7 to go g5. Suddenly the bishop comes to rescue, and now knight e4, and you activate your knight, the bishop defense. This is a typical computer geometry that from a position that is completely uncoordinated, like this and everything falls apart. The bishop is randomly placed in the center of the board. The knight has to go somewhere. It's all really awkward here. If king here, then knight g4 is there. There's a mating net. If king back, then king is stuck on the back rank. Just move the rook at some point, and the king is cut off. From the position where like everything is falling apart, the computer is able to somehow keep it all together. Bishop goes for defense. Pawn opens up the diagonal. The knight goes for offense, and suddenly their harmony is restored. And this kind of restoration of harmony is something computers are very good at, and it's not easy for a human in a time scramble. And so after getting this chance, Ding just converted very accurately, simplified, gave a pawn to trade knights. Now on the 7th rank, he's got a complete dominance in the pawn here, and he can do whatever he likes. So he just slowly brought his king over and all the way up, as you will see. There's not much to say here, just slowly but surely the Chinese player, move by move, entered and got his king to join, and then he'll trade the bishops and promote the queenside pawn. Important win for Ding, who now finds himself 50%. And Ding, by the way, compared to Alireza and Radjabov, has that half a point more, and that could be relevant if he starts racking up a lot of wins. There could be potential for a miracle. I don't think for a player on a -1 it's possible, but for a player on 50%, it is still possible. If he wins tomorrow, well, it's hard because it's a rest day, but if he wins the next round, at some point one more. He needs, of course, a break with the black pieces, just like tennis players. Sometimes we need that break when the opponent is serving. So the same with Ding, he needs that win with the black pieces, and then it is theoretically possible, but highly unlikely, of course, with the score he has right now. But still, his fans are happy to see this game, and so are we. The fans of Duda, of course, not going to be thrilled. Tough tournament for the Polish player. He is really struggling in his first candidates, needs that experience, and gains it here in the most painful way. But this is life. In any case, thank you for watching, and let's look at what the next round will bring us. It brings us to the standings. Jan Nepomniachtchi, an important draw today, really an important draw, but you know, so far things are really going his way. He gets all the breaks, lucky breaks he needs, but he is in fact just one round away from Fabiano catching him. And it's just goes to show how difficult a tournament like this is. You're never sure until you're sure, with players as good as Fabiano just chasing you around. And I do think Jan is a heavy favorite, but it's still far away, and we'll see. The next round, Jan is white against Timur Radjabov. How do you approach such a game? Not so simple for Jan. Playing it safe is a little strange. At the same time, Timur won the previous game, so I guess Jan is going to try to play, but a little bit cautiously, and not going to just try to kill the game like he did with Ding Liren. But we'll see. We'll see. Every strategy makes sense, but to just give away all your whites with 5 rounds to go, it's a little bit strange. But maybe he will do that. We'll find out. Actually, quite curious. Of course, Fabi is black against Duda. Fabi is going to go for a win, I think. Duda is not a very strict player in the opening. He is playing rather loose with white as well. He doesn't usually doesn't go for some solid worked out tries. He just opens the game and creates a fight. Fabi is going to be eager to fight because Duda is the player struggling the most. He is that one player who haven't bounced back yet and doesn't have a win to his name. So Fabi is going to go all out. That could mean an opportunity for Duda and a chance for Fabi to burn himself as well. So we'll see what that happens, how that plays out. Hikaru has white pieces after this tough game, but against Alireza Firouzja, and Alireza just won another 3-result game. Very interesting. Rapport against Ding. Rapport, also a player that likes to play creative, and Ding, he will think of those winning chances, as I already told you. I think Ding is secretly thinking about racking up some wins in the end and starting fight for the first place before it's too late. I'm really excited. Again, I use the word exciting and excited. I'll stop. Really looking forward to the round the day after tomorrow, because tomorrow is a rest day. That's nice for the viewers, but mainly for the players to rest, and for us to enjoy other videos on my channel until the next recap the day after tomorrow. Oh, don't forget, of course, to subscribe to my channel and go pro on Chessable in the pro videos on Chessable in my course there. I'm looking at the game of the day, which for today was the game between Firouzja and Rapport in much bigger depth. Try to cover it in more detail, and also, of course, there are puzzles for you and all kinds of perks that Chessable has to offer, so do check that out. On that cheerful note, I'm signing off. Thank you for watching, and bye-bye.